Hello and welcome to my meditation. My name is Debra Baker and I am so grateful that you have joined me and that we get to spend this time together. Let's begin with a nice deep breath. Fill up all 5 lobes of your lungs and then let it go. Another nice cleansing breath. And we know that we are infinite spirits having a human experience. A few weeks ago, began a series on the promises of the 12-step programs. And the promise we are going to touch on today is we will comprehend the word serenity. So my occasional sidekick, Lacey, was here yesterday, was at our house yesterday, and we didn't get a chance to record an introduction by her, but I told her that the theme was serenity, and I can't duplicate the expression she gave me. It was pretty hilarious. Like, what are you talking about, Mama Deb? And we're talking about comprehending the word serenity, so it seemed like a pretty big challenge to her. Let's begin with relaxing our bodies. So everywhere that your body is touching, either the bed, the sofa, the chair, the floor, just become aware of that point of contact. And imagine little trapdoors opening up at those points of contact. And releasing all your stress and tension. And then imagine that sense of relief, sense of relief and release just kind of spreading. So that let's, for the sake of clarity, imagine that you're lying down. So everywhere, the backs of your legs, the backs of your glutes, your back of your neck, back of your head. Just imagine all those little trapdoors opening up and just letting go, and like if you were a sponge soaking up water, that relaxation just spreading from the back all the way forward. So it's about halfway. So it's surrounding your internal organs, helping you feel more and more relaxed and peaceful. And spreading through your hands and your feet, all the way up to the tips of your toes, the tips of your fingers, the palms and the backs of your hands. Going through each one of your chakras at the same time, all the way through your legs. Breathing into it, through it, and notice your breathing has become more and more relaxed, more and more peaceful. And as you relax, I was having this conversation with someone yesterday, I guess it was a client, that the more we relax, the more peaceful we become, and the more peaceful we become, the more our bodies are able to fill up, facilitate, to use our infinite self, that infinite spiritual energy. And so let's just imagine that it's kind of like a a hose, like a garden hose. And when we are, and I'm watering a lot these days because it's been very dry here in Kansas, and no matter how neatly I seem to lay out the hose, it gets kinks in it, and I'm trying to water, and it's just the energy, the water won't go through. And I feel like our thoughts do that as well. We become so focused on the negative, the things that are happening that are out of our control, especially the bad things that are happening, that we put a kink in the flow. And so let's imagine as we relax, like we relax the hoses and we allow more and more of the infinite presence to move in, through, and as us. We open ourselves up to that divine flow. And notice how good it feels to connect with your infinite and allow that energy to flow through, to flow in, through, and as you. And so we will comprehend the word serenity. My husband and I were trying to explain to our granddaughter what it meant, and I'm coming up with a lot of words, and my husband said, serenity, this is what serenity means. And I thought that was a pretty good description. Serenity is being at peace. There's the serenity prayer, and the first line of the serenity prayer is, God grant me serenity. Not God grant me all of these things that I'll need to create serenity. Cut right to the chase. God grant me serenity. So let's imagine that's kind of our prayer right now. God grant me serenity. And so the guides are suggesting that we go through an emotional release process to understand serenity. So beginning with the head, neck, and shoulders, which is where we store anger, frustration, stress, that sense of, powerlessness, but more like helplessness, despair. So imagine that you unkink that hose and the infinite flows into your head, neck, and shoulders. And just imagine something that either you are angry about now or you have been angry about in the past. And imagine serenity flowing in there. Serenity resembles letting go a lot. I would say that serenity has a component of release and letting go in it. So as we release our anger, as we accept it, that, things are happening that, we don't like, that are unfair, that are wrong, they seem wrong, they seem unjust. All of our senses of, the way things should be, when they don't happen that way, a lot of times we get angry. So let's just imagine the infinite flowing into our head, neck, and shoulders and telling us it's okay. It's okay to be angry. And it's okay to not like the way things are. And at the same time, if it's something outside of you, if it's something other than your own thoughts, words, and actions, then being angry about it is kind of futile. So, but I know anger is a natural human emotion. So let's just spend a moment, a couple nice deep breaths, just allowing ourselves to feel whatever anger we're feeling. And then to allow the infinite presence to draw our attention from the anger to divine order, to the certainty that nothing happens in God's world by accident. Nothing happens in this world by accident. We are infinite souls having experiences, a wide variety of experiences, some that we would choose again and some that we definitely would not choose again. But there we are. And the kinks in the hose are also tied to resistance. And a lot of times we hold on to our anger as we are resisting what is. So let's remember the prayer, thank you God, I wouldn't have it any other way. And to know that whatever is happening, it is necessary to create that next step, whatever it may be. I remember when my father died, I don't remember a whole lot of anger, but I'm sure there was some. There was anger about other situations at that time. And yet now, 11 years later, I can see that my father's passing allowed me to write my first book. And I really don't, I can't find a direct correlation between the two, but I do know that there was this sense of when I let go of him, I was allowed to create space to write the book. So let's trust the infinite, that everything is in divine order. I mean, you could not trust the infinite, but that wouldn't serve. I feel like it serves us best when we allow the divine to move in, through, and as us. When we let go of our resistance. And the saying goes, be in the middle of the boat, in the middle of the river. Meaning that there's the most, kind of protection with the boat, and then divine energy around us, the river being the divine flow. So let's go to the next emotion, which is, from our heart space. So from your collarbone down to the bottom of your rib cage, say. And that's where we hold sorrow, sadness. And I suggest that a lot of times we're not consciously holding on to it. It's just there. And so we can make the choice to unkink the hose, to let go of the resistance, and just, first of all, allow ourselves to be sad. If you're grieving a loss, in my senses, there isn't any other choice but to walk through the grief. I haven't met anybody who got through a major loss without walking through the grief. Because the grief is a gift. It has something for us. We don't see it at the time, but the grief is a gift. It has something to offer us. So let's just settle down into whatever sadness and sorrow we might be feeling. And then make the choice to allow it to continue to flow. It's like you came across the kink in the hose, and that's the sadness. And then you unkink it, and the sadness keeps going, because emotions are energy. And I think the most serene we are is when we allow the energy of the emotions to just flow, because they do go away. You experience them and then they go away. If you are in a major grief process or going through something, very significant, there may be new waves of emotion come along, but that doesn't mean that the first ones aren't gone. It's just that more is coming, and it's okay. it's okay. So we just imagine the infinite flowing through our heart spaces. And then we move down to the solar plexus, the gut, right at your navel. So between the bottom of your rib cage and the top of your hip bones is the place where we hold fear. It's also where we hold courage. So I invite you to become aware of anything that's fearful. I think that the volatility in our country right now in the United States causes fear. I've talked to a lot of people who have chosen not to watch the news anymore because it feeds their fear. And where I land with that is I ask my spirit guides, guardian angels, I ask God, if there's something that I need to know, bring it to my attention somehow or other. And if not, I let go of all of the fear-mongering and all of the, all of the news that tends to make me feel fearful, and I'm powerless over it. So there's no point in staying in that place. It's just misery. You're staying somewhere in an energy field over which you have no control, no power. You do have power, and that is to get out of the energy field. So before we get that far, before we go to where the power lies and what our power is, let's go to the lower two chakras and the pelvis and the extremities. So from your hip bones all the way down to the floor and your arms and hands. And that is shame. And shame is a multi-layered emotion, because there's a kind of an instantaneous shame that we can let go of pretty quickly by just admitting, gosh, I feel ashamed of that. And then there's kind of this deeper shame that is interwoven with grief that is a little more complicated. It takes a little more time. But we know that the solution is always the divine, the one presence and the one power. So let us focus on allowing the infinite to move into our lower two chakras, or the pelvis, the extremities, and unkink the hose. Release the resistance. Allow us to feel for a very, short time, whatever shame that there is there, and then allow us to let it go. So, how do we let it go? How do we make that last turn for home to comprehend the word serenity? I think that when we comprehend something, the best way to comprehend something is to experience it. So how do we experience serenity? We release our emotions, we allow them to be, and then we allow them to move on. It's kind of like you're in the boat on the river, and a leaf floats by, and you pick it up, and you go, oh, look at that leaf, isn't that pretty? And then you put it back in the water, and you let it flow on by. Or you're floating by a beautiful tree, or an ugly tree, or the remains of a cabin that burnt to the ground, and you just observe it, and then you keep going. So it's our thoughts often that create or ruin our serenity. And how does that happen? Because what we focus on increases. So when we focus on joy, when we focus on peace, when we focus on things that we want to have, things that we have that are blessing us, and we have so many blessings. Doing a gratitude list every night, 5-10 things for 2 weeks, I guarantee will give you a sense of serenity. And it's also something we don't talk about a lot is distraction. When we distract ourselves from our pain, we allow ourselves to move on. So I invite you this week to come up with a list for yourself of things you can use to distract yourself. So I was working with someone this weekend who was having a really hard time, and I thought of retail therapy, which I don't recommend all the time because it can be a little hard on your pocketbook. But the occasional visit to a store or even a website is a distraction. Oh my gosh, I'm talking here, and there is a little baby rabbit hopping through my yard. And there was a red finch before. There was a robin about 10 feet from me. I feel like I'm in this kind of sacred oasis. Again, distraction. I think Spirit just allowed me to demonstrate distraction. Oh, figuring out ways that you can distract yourself. One of my favorite ways is to go up in my sewing room. I either find an unfinished project, or I find something that I need to put away, or something that I want to start. And so it's a distraction. So I invite you to think about the places where you can go to distract yourself. And in the distraction, we let go of the kinks in the hose. And then we can find our way to serenity. God grant me serenity. The robin is now about 5 feet away, which is just so awesome. I guess I must be sitting really, really still. So remember that you are an infinite being, whole and perfect, exactly as you are. And my wish for you this week is that you experience serenity, whether it's just a moment or a few hours or a day or all week. My wish for you is serenity. So the infinite presence moving in, through, and as me honors and recognizes and blesses the infinite presence moving in, through, and as you. Namaste.